the most important thing on the ticket today, I would suggest, is possibly the final stages of the Brexit negotiations, because these are really coming down to the wire, and everything still seems to be up in the air. And this is very much breaking news where we are at the moment, and we're actually still waiting for the results of this, but you'll see why in a minute. So, as the BBC and everyone their mother has been live reporting, here's just an update from the BBC on where things were when I got up this morning. Negotiators are in the final throes of agreeing a post-Brexit trade deal, with the fish being the last thing on the menu, and also quite a contentious thing. The call to finalise the deal between UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was expected at 7 o'clock this morning, but it's been delayed. They're expected to continue talking, etc., etc. The UK Parliament will then be recalled on the 30th of December to vote on the deal, and once they've voted on the deal and it's been sent to various member states who also have to agree to it, then assuming everyone is happy with the way things are and it gets voted through, the UK will have a deal. Otherwise, on the 31st of December, we will be leaving. We've left, in fact, but the transition period will end, and it will be a no-deal World Trade Organization scenario. So, in expectation of a deal, the pound has risen, so it seems the markets are in favour of us having a deal. And I'm not against us having a deal. I'm against us having a bad deal. I would rather have no deal rather than a bad deal. The BBC, so just to refresh everyone's memories, how does everyone feel about Brexit? Well, in the referendum, it was 52% for and 48% against. And the recent polls, according to the BBC, suggest that 39% of voters said that Brexit was the right decision, and 49% have said it's the wrong decision. But another poll also suggests that people would vote to stay out rather than to rejoin if there was another referendum. So, I don't know, revealed preferences, I guess. So the question is, excuse me. The question is really seems to be coming down to the issue of fish and fisheries. Now, for anyone who's familiar with the European Union's consequence on the British fishing industry, the best way I think to describe it is disastrous. Us being an island surrounded by coastal, covered in coastal cities that used to have thriving fishing industries, it seems to have been something that has been robbed from Britain as part of being in the European Union. But as BBC Europe reporter Gavin Lee says, as he understands it, this was very recently, it's 10:30 almost. So a few hours ago, talks haven't yet finished between negotiators and they're still talking about fish. Through the night, the lights have been on and they've been talking species by species, herring by herring, mackerel by mackerel. I can't help but feel that if the discussion is this far into the weeds of the thing, then we're on the losing end of it, because really, I mean, these are our waters. There should be only so much we need to talk about. But anyway, so the fish compromise, as reported by Joe Barnes, the Daily Express Brussels correspondent, he says, a senior European source tells me that Boris Johnson is willing to accept that the EU hands back just 25% of the value of fish it catches in British waters over a 5.5-year transition period. The UK was previously insisting on 35% over 3 years. This is seen as a significant concession by the EU side and is likely to anger Brexiteers in Britain. As a Brexiteer in Britain, I just want to say I am angered by this. I don't understand why we're letting them catch any fish in our waters, or at least, not without paying us significant amounts of money. Delving deeper, the PM said he's reclaimed control of British waters. After the transition, the UK government will be free to decide access. It appears the EU has given way on its punishment clause to demand that Britain would be slapped with tariffs if EU boats lose access in the future. It is also worth noting that the EU was previously asking for 15 to 18% phased in over 10 years. It looks like a good deal on fish and has been used tactically to secure a number of concessions across the deal. Okay. I haven't seen the deal. No one's seen the deal, in fact, yet. So I guess this is positive to a certain degree. I mean, you've got to give a little if you want to get a little. So can't make a judgment. But everyone online is very much worried this is going to be a rehash of Theresa May's surrender deal from 2018. As the Gatestone Institute, they wrote a fantastic article on this back in the day, and I can just summarise it accurately here. As they say at the beginning, the deal will cost the taxpayer €60 billion, will require that British still comply with EU rules without having any say in what those rules will be, and worst of all, it will permits the British to leave the EU only if the EU agrees. It commits the British effectively to subjugation by the EU in perpetuity with no recourse should the British change their minds. It is a prison. It is also the first step of the EU towards its dream of global governance, unaccountable, untransparent, unelected by the public and no way out. And I mean, you might say, well, that sounds quite one-sided and quite aggressive. And it's like, yes, but it's also an accurate description of what the EU is aiming for. But so on our side, the British side, the Brexiteer side primarily, how do they feel about it? So the Brexiteers are actually feeling pretty good about what we know about Boris's deal so far. Excuse me. For example, David Davis, who was the Britain's lead Brexit negotiator at one point, former Brexit secretary, says he tells LBC that he is not too bothered about the repatriation values of fish, but rather that end of the fish transition period, which is just the term we're using, I guess, at the end of it, the UK is in control of its waters. And he suggests that he is prepared to accept an agreement which means that Britain chooses to go by EU rules and regulations, as long as Brussels doesn't get to unilaterally decide at some stage that we have broken those rules and then impose tariffs on us as a result. Which is fair, but again, it seems that we've given an awful lot in concessions here. Farage himself, though, the Mr. Brexit, the king of the Leave campaign, is surprisingly positive about all of this. We'll just play this clip.
He and Michael Gove were the two senior Conservative politicians who, when the referendum came, albeit late in the day, but that's not the point, they had the guts to back Brexit, and thank goodness they did. So, yes, Boris will be seen as the man that finished the job, perhaps not perfectly, but yes, he's done what he said he'd do. On the big picture, I suspect on some of the detail, such as we'll be back in charge of our fisheries, history may judge some of those aspects a little more harshly. But on the big stuff, the war is over. It has gone on for decades in this country, from the Maastricht Rebellion onwards. It's never, ever gone away. The fight over whether we should be part of the European structures or not. And now we're out, arguably with a new treaty that's a bit closer to a partnership agreement. It's not perfect, but goodness me, it's still progress.
Okay, so, I mean, good news. If Nigel Farage is generally approving of what Boris has achieved so far, that's a good start. I just have to say, I find it interesting how like all of the other sort of major Brexit supporters were made lords, and Farage hasn't been. I think that's actually something that the Conservative Party needs to get over themselves on and actually help him out with that. Because I think that Farage, I mean, he dedicated most of his adult life to fighting for leaving the European Union, and now it's happened, and we're at the very final point. I think Farage deserves some recognition for his services to the United Kingdom. I think that really he deserves to be, I mean, at very least, sir. Come on, if not Lord. And Lord Farage sounds great as well. It'd be a real thing that'd stick in the craw of people like Andrew Adonis and all of the other heavily Remain MPs and Europhiles who apparently have been on suicide watch all over Twitter today, blocking people relentlessly because things have not been going brilliantly as far as they're concerned. Because it looks like we might get a deal that doesn't actually bind us to being the serfs of the European Union forever, which of course is the worst thing that these people can imagine, because that means that Britain would be independent, be able to chart its own future, etc., etc. But it's not all rosy. So members of the European Research Group, which is a conservative sort of think tank made up of conservative MPs in Parliament, are very, very sceptical about this. And apparently a bunch of them are expected to vote down the deal. 20 members, as the new European reports of the European Research Group, are expected to vote down a Brexit deal when it comes to the House of Commons. Allies of Boris Johnson have calculated that a significant portion of the backbenchers would vote against any deal. Among the ERG Spartans are Mark Francois, Ian Duncan Smith, and Andrew Bridgen and Peter Bone. People who've held a very consistent line in all of this. But the Daily Mail has apparently reported that 100 members of the group are likely to back the Prime Minister. So it can't be that bad if such a large number of the ERG are in favour of it. So when will we actually know? Well, we don't know. We were told earlier, as reported on The Guardian, that we should expect a press conference from Boris and Ursula today, but there was one meant to happen this morning, but it didn't happen, and it's been postponed, and we should be expecting another one. Keir Starmer, Labour have apparently decided they're not going to vote against the deal in the Commons, because Labour were effectively deal at any cost, soft Brexit, shackled Brexit, whatever you want to call it. Labour have been on the, in the middle, very much radical fence sitters when it came to the Brexit question, and that was really something that cost them in the previous election, in my opinion. They should have come out hard on the side of Brexit, because at the end of the day, it was a huge number of their own constituents were saying we want to leave the European Union, because a huge number of their own constituents are working class British folk who consider their national identity important, and that means the sovereignty of Britain is important, and that means that Brexit is important, and there are lots of other values that are packaged into this that are important to these people, and Labour knew that this was the case, but kind of had to also go in the globalist, technocrat, socialist direction as well, and found themselves bifurcated. But anyway, so Keir Starmer, obviously being aware of all of this, has said that he will strongly hinted, that he will whip his MPs to vote in favour. He has said that the party will not vote, will vote in the national interest, and that no deal, the alternative, is clearly not in the national interest. So let's hope to God, assuming that you're a believer, or just God if you're an atheist, I guess. But pray to Sam Harris that we get a vote that is a deal that is in the national interest, because I mean otherwise we're going to be stuck with it, and we're going to be stuck with it for a long time. So I don't know, man. I'm not terribly optimistic, to be honest. I don't think Boris is a very strong character, strong-willed character, but I mean, hopefully on the subject of Brexit, he holds the line. But apparently, according to Gavin Lee, the BBC News Europe correspondent, it's going to be a good few hours till we get any info, and this was tweeted out just before midday. So, I mean, who knows? There's speculation that it's going to carry on through Christmas. I don't know. But we're not going to get any information today, I suspect, or if we do, it'll be later today. So... let's fingers crossed.